my fellow gore horror besties, and welcome back to another episode of Gore Horror, where we dive deep into the dark corners of the criminal mind and explore the stories behind some of America's most notorious serial killers. I want to apologize again for being MIA. I was having a lot of technical issues, but I finally got new cameras, new microphones, lights, things like that, and we are ready to go and set up for success. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the crimes and life of one of the most infamous serial killers in American history, Ed Kemper III, also known as the Co-Ed Killer or just Ed Kemper. I became extremely curious about who Ed Kemper was during a Netflix series that I was watching called Mindhunters, and if you haven't watched Mindhunters, it's such a good show. I couldn't believe how good it was and how intriguing it was. If you haven't heard of it, I do want to play the trailer real quickly for you so you can get a feel of what it. If you have Netflix, definitely give it a shot at watching. I think you'd really like it.
Not easy butchering people. It's hard work. Physically and mentally, I don't think people realize you need to vent.
You know, there's a lot more like me.
Do you think so?
40 years ago, your FBI was founded hunting down John Dillinger. Now, we have extreme violence between strangers.
We travel around the country and teach FBI techniques to cops.
You guys mind if I bother you for a minute?
She was found cuffed and lashed to the bed.
What people won't do to each other. There's nothing people won't do.
How can we help?
We should be using every resource we can. Talking to the smartest people we find from the broadest possible spectrum.
Are criminals born? Or are they formed?
Psychopaths are convinced that there's nothing wrong with them, so these men are virtually impossible to study. Yet you have found a way in near perfect laboratory conditions.
Hello, ladies.
That's what makes this so exciting and potentially so far-reaching.
I can't let these guys rub off on me. The way they view sex.
And women.
It is not our job to commiserate with these people. It is our job to electrocute them.
We can't like everything we do. We're talking to serial killers.
Serial killers.
New terminology.
I'm trying to warn you, your attitude is going to bite you in the ass.
So young to be ruining people's lives.
What did you do?
You're developing a pattern of behavior that will not sustain you here. Agent Ford, if you leave, I can't help you.
There's no procedural rule book for how to talk to these people.
If any of this is going to work, we need to talk to more subjects. More!
You want truffles? You gotta get in the dirt with the pigs.
It is so interesting, and I would highly recommend watching it because from what I found, a lot of it is actually based off of an author who was really doing these interviews, and the interviews are chillingly very almost exact, and I will show you one of those a little bit later. All those who do know of Ed Kemper, who don't know what Ed Kemper is, we are going to jump right into just going through Ed Kemper.
Forever. As I'm sitting there with a severed head in my hand, talking to it, or looking at it, and I'm about to go crazy, literally.
So, Ed Kemper III, he was such a tall dude. He was 6'9", and they said that he had an IQ estimated between 145 and 160. He was so smart, and he defies the stereotypical image of what a serial killer is. He was highly articulate, intelligent, and shockingly very self-aware of his actions and who he was. He didn't just kill. He told them exactly why he did it, and where it all started when he was just 15 years old. So Edmund Kemper was born on December 18th, 1948 in Burbank, California. Right on from his early years, his life was just full of dysfunction, just full of chaos, dysfunction, and trauma. He grew up in a household that was just dominated by his mother, Clarnell, who was described as extremely overbearing and abusive. Kemper, who stood by his imposing just 6 feet 9 inches tall, he was often bullied by his peers and subjected to his mother's wrath, which fostered deep animosity and perhaps a twisted series of just a sense of identity issues. And a lot of that was just speculation because all we know is his side of the story, which he says it's all his mom's fault. His mom was abusive, tore apart his childhood, and it's just spiraling from there. At the age of 15, Kemper's rage just erupted into violence, and he committed his first murders. On August 27, 1964, he killed both of his grandparents, 73-year-old Maud Kemper, which I'm sure I said the name wrong, and 66-year-old Edward Kemper. And it was all acted out by fuel of anger, just so much anger, and he executed it with such chilling precision. He first shot his grandma once in the head and twice in the back as she bent down to the ground. When his grandfather arrived back home, he was very unaware of the horrors that had just happened in the house and that his wife had been murdered. So Kemper ended up shooting him as well, claiming that he did it to prevent his grandfather from being angry at him. Which doesn't make sense, but nobody knows exactly what was going through Kemper's brain at the age of 15. Upon the murders, he ended up becoming institutionalized, where he displayed a very unique and unsettling just personality. His high intelligence and articulate speech made him a favorite among all of the therapists. They all just loved him so much because he was often able to manipulate conversations to go the way that he wanted them to go, which showcased a strong understanding of human psychology that many of the other inmates lacked from what they said. His intelligence, his IQ, it just allowed him to engage in such sophisticated discussions about life and death that would later serve him well as evading a deeper scrutiny. And all of this at the age of 15 is just, it was so shocking to them, and they were so intrigued by his words, his actions, and his age, which ended up only offering more opportunities in his life for him because of how smart he was. He spent many years in the hospital and then was deemed rehabilitated, and he released on his 21st birthday in 1969, where he moved back in with his mother, which from everything that I saw, that was one of the worst things that they could have done. He ended up trying to live a relatively normal life. He went to college, and oddly enough, he expressed aspirations of becoming a police officer. He was doing all these murders and rages and wanted to become a police officer. But beneath all of the facade of normalcy, he was still very dark, and the darkness was still brewing inside of him. And that's when it became in the 1970s, just a year after he had been released, when he was just 22 years old, he began to lure young female hitchhikers. And over the span of less than a year, he brutally, disgustingly murdered 8 women, often targeting those who were very vulnerable. And this is where it becomes viewer discretion is advised. As always, it's very brutal, and sometimes people can't handle the specifics of the murders. His methods were just horrific. He would pick up a female of hitchhikers in Santa Cruz. Once he had them in the car, he would strangle them or shoot them before engaging in dismemberment and necrophilia. It was often reported that he returned to his home as if he was keeping them as trophies. He had a trophy room where he kept all the remains of his victims. And he did that through that time span with all 8 women. But in 1973, that's when his final murders happened. It reached the peak. His mother had returned home from a party, and he says that she was sitting in bed reading, and she casually said, word for word, "I suppose you're going to want to sit up all night and talk now." And Kemper says that he replied with, "No, good night." He went back to his room and waited until hours later. He crept back in. He bludgeoned her to death with a hammer, slit her throat to decapitate her, and placed her head on a shelf. screaming at it, throwing darts, and finally just smashing her face to unrecognition. He stated then that he cut out her vocal cords and tried to dispose of them and destroy them in the garbage disposal. He later said word for word, "That seemed appropriate, as much as she'd bitched and screamed at me over so many years." He then took her corpse, stuffed it in a closet, and went to drink at a nearby bar. Upon returning home, for some reason, I couldn't find why he did this, he invited his mother's best friend over, 59-year-old Sarah Taylor, also known as Sally, over to the house to have dinner and watch a movie with him. When she arrived, Kemper strangled her immediately and subsequently put her corpse in the closet with his mother. He obscured any outward signs of disturbance and left a police note that said, "No need for her to suffer any more at the hands of this horrible, murderous butcher. It was quick and asleep the way I wanted it. Not sloppy and incomplete, gents. Just a lack of time. I've got things to do." He then fled to Pueblo, Colorado, and he was armed with guns, lots of caffeine pills, and just full of paranoia, he said. But then, just in a moment that shocked investigators, he stopped running. He called the police and confessed, and they did not believe him. They did not want to listen to a word that he said, and told him to call back. And when he called back, they listened. And finally, they took it serious, and they brought him in to conduct an interview. And they asked him, "Why did you turn yourself in?" And word for word, Kemper said, "The original purpose was gone. It wasn't serving any physical or real or emotional purpose. It was just a pure waste of time. Emotionally, I couldn't handle it much longer. Toward the end of there, I started feeling the folly of the whole damn thing, and at the point of near exhaustion, near collapse, and just said, what the hell with it, and called it off." And that's exactly what he did. So when they began to go over his psychological profile, it was so clear again that highly intelligent and articulate. He was not legally insane. He knew what he was doing. He understood right from wrong. He describes his killing in disturbing details, showing insight to his motivations. And all of it came from just a claimed pure hatred for his mother that drive the force behind his violence. And a lot of them say that the reason that he committed these murders was because he would get into his fight with his mother, and he would get angry, and he would go take it out on other women, which is unfortunate. During his time incarcerated, Kemper began working with the FBI, providing in-depth interviews that helped agents like John Douglas, who actually is the one that's responsible for Mindhunters, and Robert Ressler. He developed the early stages of criminal profiling and became a standard reference of forensic psychology. He shaped so much of the realm of criminal psychology and just shaped the art of it altogether. It was so fascinating that he just cooperated so much with law enforcement and gave so much insightful articulations of his actions. And he provided a lot of invaluable data for understanding the minds of serial killers. Because after his capture in April 1973, Kemper was not only forthcoming about his own crimes, but also expressed the interest of helping law enforcement understand the psychological underpinnings of all serial murders. And he just wanted to do all of those things. So I want to show you the absolute chilling interviews of the similarities between Mindhunters and Ed Kemper's actual interview. It is crazy. It is a little long, so we'll give it some time and get right into it.
Well, cops like me because they can talk to me more than they can talk to their own wives, some of them.
Did the cops like you? Like I said, a friendly nuisance. I got in the way.
I watch all the cop shows on TV.
Do you know Joseph Wambaugh? Police Story, you ever watch that?
Huge fan.
Oh.
I got a lot of my insights right there.
Really?
Joseph Wambaugh, Police Story. Got some tremendous insights into not just the gimmicks, the actual things, the tidbits that he would pick up from their procedures, but the mechanics behind that, the logic behind it, was I would not allow myself to walk into even a potential trap.
I would not allow myself to walk into a trap because I knew exactly how their minds work from watching Wombaugh.
What kind of trap are you talking about?
And one of those was talking about those crimes too much to people, initiating conversations about that.
The classic is talking too much about the crimes, over interest. You have to remain casual.
It would be a guess.
But I'd say right now,
Far more than 35.
in North America, more than 35.
35?
Well, I'm not an expert.
Well, hold on, I'm not an expert. I'm not an authority.
I'm someone who has been a murderer for almost 20 years.
I'm just an extremely accomplished murderer.
I was also involved in killing co-eds because my mother was associated with college work, college co-eds.
She had a very violently outspoken position on men.
And had a very strong and violently outspoken position on men.
Then comes this picture postcard, groovy, happy young couple on the stairs. They walk right past me.
Walking up to my apartment, past a happy young couple coming down the stairs who nodded and smiled at me as they went by. Good evening.
Your two worlds are colliding.
My murderous fantasy life, and this. It's a pretty girl, pretty name. Kim or something. Going out on a date.
Where I'd love to be going. And I'm aware of both of these realities, and the distance between those two is so dramatic, so amazing, so violent. And this craving, this awful, raging, eating feeling inside. I could feel it consuming my insides.
I could feel it consuming my insides. This fantastic passion.
It was overwhelming me. I wasn't impotent, but emotionally I was impotent.
Physically, I wasn't impotent, but emotionally I was. I knew a week before she died I was gonna kill her.
I knew a week before she died I was gonna kill her.
She went out to a party,
she got soused.
She came home alone.
I was woken up by that. Came out.
You know, that night I
walked up to her bed.
She's laying there reading a paperback. As many thousands of nights before. She says, "Oh, I suppose you're gonna want to wait up all night and talk now." Can you believe that?
I looked at her. I said, "No." I said, "Good night." And I knew I was going to kill her. You know?
And I knew I was going to kill her. You know. I was honest with myself for the first time.
And that's the first time in 10 years I've looked at it that way. I mean, that intensely, that honestly. It hurts. A 6 young woman dead because of the way she raises her son and the way her son is raised, the way he grows up.
And now everyone knows it was because of what she did to me, because of the way she treated her son.
I rationalized that to give up would be insane. To give up would be crazy. I'd be giving away my freedom, and I don't need to. But I look back on that and wish I had earlier when I was saying those things to myself. The people who were later dead wouldn't be. The regret that came later would have not had to be. Those people, not things, those people would still be with their families, with their loved ones.
I know it's silly, but Mom always liked people to look up to her.
As you saw in that real life interview with Ed Kemper, is he really does stick to the fact that it was his mother's fault. I feel like, yes, he understands what he did was wrong and he's doing all these things, but then part of me doesn't seem that he's taking accountability for his own actions and his own reasons, and he's just putting it all on his mother. And I don't know if you thought that same way. I'd love to know if maybe that's just me thinking that, but that's not how it is. Who knows? So back into following his confessions to the murders of his mother and her friend. Along with all of the other women, Kemper shared detailed accounts of his methods, his motivations, and just many intense interviews with law enforcement and psychologists. But one of the pioneering ways that Kemper contributed to criminal profiling through his interviews, which took almost like a therapeutic nature, he was articulate and introspective and expressed his feelings and perceptions that were related to just horrific acts in ways that were both chilling and enlightening. His ability to analyze his motivations led experts to gain greater insights into the minds of killers, which is actually what brought to this day criminal profiling. He set that boundary of expectations of how to profile a criminal and how to successfully just understand the brain of a criminal so that they can do that psychological profile. And he was very involved in creating that process. And it just started just a framework for understanding how personal history can influence murderous behavior, because he did give those insights of his hatred for women due to his troubling relationship with his mother. He elaborated on the concept of surrogate victims, indicating that his killings often, as I said earlier, stemmed from anger directed towards his mother that he would take it out on other women. He says that he viewed them as an embodiment of femininity. And this revelation was so pivotal for behavioral analysis and profilers when it came to conducting psychological profiles of other serial killer offenders. Kemper's involvement just gave those techniques that are now, as I said, just standard practice. He used critical information that's actually used to this day in training FBI agents and different criminal analysis. They study his case for motivations, patterns, informing techniques used to identify and apprehend based on behavioral evidence. He just brought in that he knew that all of this stuff was going to be helpful towards catching other criminals. And a lot of criminals in this world do not possess the same qualities that Kemper had when it came to wanting to talk to law enforcement. And they just brought so much strategy to helping out. And he's just a textbook case in the studies of forensic psychology, which is wild to me. I think that it's just crazy again. And the smartness of this man to do all of this stuff. So today, Ed Kemper is still alive. He is 76 years old and he's still imprisoned in California. He has gone up for parole many times, and he was denied every single time. His most recent was actually last year. He was up for parole. It was denied again. From what I saw, he was going to be eligible for parole again in 2034. They don't want to release him, even though he's in his 70s, almost 80, because they said that his crimes were just so horrific and disturbing and disgusting that they just don't want to put him back in the world, which I agree. I mean, even at the age of 76, he's where he belongs. Even if he was smart and articulate and so just helpful towards the FBI, doesn't mean that he needs to be back on the streets. So we will see what happens if he even makes it to his next parole hearing, but I have a feeling that they wouldn't let him out regardless. His legacy of his crimes and this just strange, terrifying clarity which he spoke about them, it continues to fascinate psychologists, law enforcement, and true crime followers just like us. And it's so intriguing to know what drives a man with intelligence, charm, self-awareness to kill. And I don't know if that's a question we may ever fully be able to answer. But his murders were just characterized by brutality, including necrophilia, dismemberment, and potentially cannibalism. At one point, he did say that he did act in cannibalistic actions, and then he said that he didn't. So who knows on that one? I feel like if he really had, he would have talked about it. I mean, why else would he be going through all of this other stuff and then just deny that one thing. So that is it for today. I am working on some other cases. I might dive deep a little bit more into the Mindhunter situation because I just love the actual real interviews of these serial killers, of what they did. If there's anybody that you want to hear about, let me know so that we can start to get really into getting back on track with all of these things. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for your patience while I was getting all of my technical things out of the way. And I will see you again for another episode of Gore. Thank you.